Hello, everyone. Welcome in to Live and Learn on a special Friday edition of the podcast. Was live for about 3 minutes last night, then got a knock on the door, kind of interrupted the show. So I apologize for the late podcast coming up. We're doing it this afternoon, and thrilled to be on with you. Thrilled to have so much to talk about going into the last weekend before Christmas, the last weekend before the start of the World Junior Hockey Championships. And Sunday morning, a little earlier, 10, 11 o'clock, we'll be doing a show just previewing the World Juniors. Watched Team Canada's game against Switzerland last night. Easton Cowan with a hat trick. Braden Yager, Captain Canada, played really well. To me, I thought he was the best player on the ice. But we're going to preview the entire tournament. We're going to look at every team. The United States named their final roster yesterday, the defending champions. They look pretty damn good, if I do say so myself. So that's Sunday morning. We'll also have a podcast on Monday night, like usual, 7 p.m., recapping the NFL weekend, NHL, other things before we get into a different schedule over the next little week or so. I would say I'm going to try to do a podcast after every Canada game. That's my goal. And again, holidays, things can get in the way, although my antisocial behavior should help me achieve that goal. But obviously, over the course of the 2-week tournament, we'll be doing podcasts covering it all. It's one of my favorite things of the year. To be honest, I don't usually miss a game in these events. It can be Kazakhstan, Latvia. I'm watching it because I love it. There's only so many games. When people tell you, oh, no, I can't do this or I got this, and they tell you, well, it's only on once a year. This is actually only on once a year. You can watch an NHL game every day, and I'll still make up that excuse why I can't go somewhere or why I'm busy or got to take a leak or whatever it might be. But in this case, it's true. This tournament's on once a year, and it's phenomenal. So I'm going to try to consume as much as humanly possible. But we still have today's show with a lot today. Later on in the program, we're going to talk last night's very entertaining game between the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers battle in the AFC West and where this leaves both teams in regards to the postseason. Just last night kicked off Week 16. 2 weeks left in the NFL season after this weekend, which is crazy. And there's lots of games over the next couple weeks. So thrilled to have so much content around the holidays, or so many games around the holidays. So we're going to talk about Broncos Chargers. We'll also preview and make picks for the 2 games tomorrow. If you didn't know, 2 games tomorrow. We got Texans Chiefs. We also got Steelers Ravens in Baltimore. So we'll make picks for those 2 games and talk about the rest of Week 16. But before we get to that, normally you might look at Friday night and go, let's go out, let's do something. Let's not watch sports. We've been doing it all week. I don't usually get that itch, but I could see why other people might want to do that. Although I do like watching the occasional episode of The Penguin on Friday night. If you haven't seen The Penguin, oh, what a show. Watch it. Just finished it. Can't recommend it enough. Very, very good on Crave. And Landman is pretty good too with my guy Billy Bob Thornton. But we're not here for recommendations. But if you want them, text me. But usually Friday night, you don't go, I can't wait to watch this Leafs-Sabres game. Who cares? It's not really that interesting. A good Leafs team, very good Leafs team, against one of the worst teams in the league, the Buffalo Sabres. However, tonight's game got more interesting for a couple of reasons. Let's start with the Buffalo angle. The city of Buffalo has two passions. The Bills, for good reason. It's the best Bills team since Jim Kelly was the quarterback and they went to 4 straight. And they're thrilled about the Bills. Can't wait to watch them win, can't wait to watch them play. All of it. But then there's the Sabres, who've lost 11 in a row, including a 6-1 loss to Montreal on Tuesday after their owner flew into town to give the boys a pep talk and the sign of approval that no major change is coming. Which, thank God for that. I was really concerned. But then they lose 6-1 to Montreal, not a very good team. Montreal, competitive group. I've liked their game better as of late. Patrick Laine has been phenomenal for that team. He's playing, he's scoring power play goals, he's alive, he's in games. That's great. Love that. But they're still Montreal, and they still have a lot of holes, and their goaltending is average at best, and they have their issues. But you lose 6-1 to Montreal. That's not good. And you look at that team, and you go with Dylan Cousins. What the hell happened to him? Peyton Krebs looks more and more like a bust. Goaltending, struggle bus. It's ugly. But anytime a team's on a losing streak, to me, they become more interesting to watch because of how bad it is. Because it's a disaster. And you want to see how bad it can get. But then Toronto, always full of content, always doing stuff to stay relevant. Like, I don't know, putting Matthews, Marner, and Nylander on the same line. Now, if you've listened to me for 5 seconds, you know I hate it when Marner and Matthews play together. I think it's stupid. I think it's unnecessary. And ultimately, I think it'll result in losing. It might not. I think I'll be right, though, because I'm usually right with Toronto and where they end up. But they're trying this experiment, and maybe the thought process should be, oh, Noah, let them try this out. Let them have some fun. Okay. Well, I watched their game on Wednesday. The Leafs won. Credit to them. Their goaltending has been phenomenal. I actually think their defending has been really good as well. If you just look at what they're doing in front of their goalies are not giving up, not getting high-quality chances against. Guys like Chris Tanev, Jake McCabe have really helped that team be better defensively and be tougher to play against. And that will result in more winning. But goaltending was great. Nick Robertson had a good night for the first time all season, maybe. Happy for him. I mean, I'm not really that happy. Like, why did I say that? I'm not that. I don't really care. I mean, I'm not that. I'm not happy. I'm not happy for him. I'm not against him, but I'm not happy. I'm not happy for him. Whatever. I don't know why that spoke to me right then, but it did. I'm not that happy for him. He's a guy that won't be on the Maple Leafs in 3 months, but hopefully that game will help his trade value and help the Leafs get something better for him. Might sound harsh, just the reality. But I'm sure the other Leafs shows will talk about why he's been great and the turnaround and what he could be, and I'll let them do that. No interest in that type of show. Don't care to do it. But the Leafs are an endless supply of content because Stolar's their number one, quote unquote, injured. Has a pebble in his knee, according to Brad Treliving. Not healthy, 4 to 6 weeks, out until February. And until February, they played quite a bit of hockey because of a truncated schedule, because of the Four Nations face-off. So they have a back-to-back this weekend. They have a back-to-back next weekend. Play a lot of hockey. And this morning, they announced that Matt Murray has been recalled from the Toronto Marlies. Dennis Hildeby, the Hildebeest, sent back to the AHL. And Matt Murray will play tonight against the Buffalo Sabres in night one of a back-to-back on the road in Buffalo. Matt Murray. I didn't think we'd see this day. Matt Murray back in the NHL. Let's just go through the timeline of this. Matt Murray is a multiple-time Stanley Cup champion. He's only 30, which is crazy. Feels like he's been around a lot longer. Drafted 3rd round, 2012. 2 cups with the Penguins, 2016, 2017. After 2020, he signed with Ottawa. Played there for 2 seasons. Only played 47 games as a member of the Ottawa Senators. 22-23 comes to Toronto. Plays 26 games. Pretty shitty numbers. And has been with the Marlies the last 2 years. 3 games last year, 6 games this year. Very good numbers with the Marlies this year. Okay. I get it. Hildebeest, to me, is not an NHL goaltender. He didn't play well against Buffalo last Sunday. He let in some stinkers, gave up 2 goals in the first 3 minutes, and they wanted to go with a more experienced guy. With Stolar's out, now you call it Matt Murray. You have Matt Murray and Joe Woll, 2 quote-unquote NHL goaltenders. But what's so funny to me about Toronto is they have 3 goalies, all injury prone, that they're relying on. And it's quite the idea. It's quite the pitch to go, yeah, we're going to go with this goalie tandem, and we have faith that any one of the 3 will be healthy. Joe Woll, missed time. You have Stolar's, missing time now and has missed time over the course of his career with knee problems. Matt Murray's had all kinds of problems, and one of those problems has been the inability to stop a puck for large parts of his career as well, so that's the bigger issue, more than even health. But he gets another opportunity, which is good. Gets another opportunity with the Leafs. If you're going to start him, you feed him to Buffalo, who suck and have no confidence and are just a wounded puppy right now. Nothing going for them. Just looking for some sort of confidence, some sort of hope. If I'm Lindy Ruff and I'm in that locker room, my sell is, hey, boys, we got Matt Murray tonight. We got an AHL goalie on the other side. Now, you're probably still going to lose because Toronto is far superior to Buffalo, just talent and just the way they play and their systems and top to bottom. Toronto's one of the best teams in the league. Ottawa's one of the worst teams in the league. But if I'm Lindy Ruff, I go, we got a home game. We've been on the road the last little while. And we got Matt Murray tonight. We got a backup. We got an AHL goalie who hasn't played in the league since 2023. Almost 2 years. He hasn't been in the National Hockey League. He's been in the American League. We can beat him. That's my message. We can beat this team. We can beat him. Will it work? Who the hell knows? Probably not. It's Buffalo, like I said. But you got to give them something. Some hope that you can produce. But Matt Murray getting the start tonight against the Sabres. And I actually believe the Pagulas when they say that nothing is imminent, nothing's going to happen. Because it would have happened already. You lost 6-1 in Montreal. If you're not going to do anything after that, then what's going to happen? What's going to change when you go play a better team? You're right before Christmas. You got a couple games before you get a holiday break. I don't see big changes coming. This season is over for the Buffalo Sabres. They are not going to be the St. Louis Blues to make the playoffs after this disaster of a start. They have 26 points after 32 games, worst in the Eastern Conference. Currently, they are 10 points out of a playoff spot chasing the Ottawa Senators. They're not going to catch the Ottawa Senators. They play in the Atlantic Division that is ultra competitive, like it always is. These teams that could fall off, they never seem to fall off. They always seem to find a way to get a victory, to stay in the hunt. So, for Buffalo, it's about not getting embarrassed. 5-3 loss last Sunday. 4-2 loss to the Capitals. 3-2 loss to the Rangers. Loss in a shootout to the Red Wings. 5-2 loss to the Hockey Club. Loss in overtime to the Jets. Loss to the Avalanche. Loss to the Islanders. Loss to the Canucks. Loss to the Wild. Last win, November 23rd, against the San Jose Sharks. It's a sad state of affairs. It's tough to look at and go, how's it going to get any worse for this team? They try to do it every year. They try to find a way. But Sabres Maple Leafs has become more interesting tonight. Just following the disaster Sabres can be interesting enough in and of itself. Last night, the Ottawa Senators went into Calgary, picked up another overtime victory. Brady Tkachuk took a nasty high stick, had to get stitches, came back into the game, got the overtime winner, the 10th of his career, his 16th goal on the season, team leading on the season. The Senators are winning. Linus Ullmark has won 6 straight starts. He has a .935 save percentage in those 6 games. And the Senators are red hot. They're playing close games, but they're winning them. And we talked on Monday. I said, looking at their trip, they're on a 9-game road trip. So they played in Carolina, went home for their last home game for a long time, beat Pittsburgh. At Seattle, shut them out. Beat Calgary in overtime last night. They had to win their first 2 games of the trip because they're playing the 2 worst, because now they get Canucks, Oilers, Jets, Wild, Dallas, St. Louis. That's tough. It's not an easy stretch. A lot of good teams in there. They get Edmonton on Sunday, second half of a back-to-back, traveling from Vancouver. But I'm impressed with this team finding different ways to win. Different guys, like beginning of the year, it seemed to be Adam Gaudette scored goals. He's a 4th liner. And they didn't have an identity. If you look lately, Timmy Stützle has been creative, a playmaker on this team. Batherson's been really good. Tkachuk has been engaged. Rumors about him with the Rangers didn't faze him. Continues to play hard, continues over a point per game so far this year. Jake Sanderson, to me, is phenomenal. He plays a ton of minutes. If you look at his plus minus, you think he sucks. I could care less about that statistic. And it's really an irrelevant statistic, so who cares? But good goaltending goes a long way. And the Ottawa Senators have had bad goaltending for a long time. And it bails you out of games where you don't play that well. Like the Leafs on Wednesday night didn't deserve to beat Dallas, but they won. Dallas played better, but Ottinger was terrible. Out to lunch, pulled after 40 minutes. And Joe Wall was quite good. And he gave that team a victory. It happens. Ottawa would get goalied. They would not have a goalie do that for them in years past. And Linus Ullmark, this is what they brought him in to do. Help us win some games that we don't deserve to win. Have a 35 save performance and be the first star of the week in the NHL. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to have a goalie outperform the rest of the team. It's okay. It's not completely foreign. And he's doing it. And Brady Tkachuk shows up in the big moments. He's a late game player, finds a way to get on the score sheet, finds a way to mix it up. Will he occasionally fight and you go, oh, he shouldn't have fought in that situation? Maybe. But I think that's stupid. I like a captain who will fight for his team. I like a captain who will defend them. And he's got that team. It's got a pulse. It's got a feel right now. They believe in one another. They're having fun. And as we get closer to Christmas, they are in a playoff spot. Normally, they're 12 points back at Christmas, and they're chasing it, and they have no pulse, and their season is effectively over. It's not right now. And there's been teams like Pittsburgh who would play better, like Ottawa over the month of December. Pittsburgh's been in a lot of games that go to overtime or the gimmick. Like last night, they beat Nashville. Poor Nashville. In overtime, UC Saros was dreadful. Another game where he couldn't make a save to save his life. Pardon the pun. But Pittsburgh's a point back of Ottawa, but Ottawa does have 2 games in hand on the Penguins. Flyers, 4 points back. Rangers, 5 points back. Blue Jackets, 5 back. Islanders, 5 back. Detroit, 6 back. So they have a bit of a cushion. And every one of those teams, minus the Rangers, if the Rangers can find their game behind Ottawa, they're better than. They should be ahead of them. They should be better than these teams. Now, they have to do this the whole year. We've seen it for a month. Allmark, be great the rest of the year. Hell, go win another Vezina if you can. But positive. Plus, you got to deal with your division. Boston doesn't go away. Fired their coach, and they've been pretty decent since they fired their coach. They have weird results because you look over the last little while. Beat the Blackhawks, beat the Flyers, get crushed by the Jets, crushed by the Kraken, crush the Canucks, edge out the Flames, and then lose in overtime to the Oilers last night. So up and down, I still don't think they're a great team. They've never been a great team. This whole year, they haven't been. They're old and they lack depth. If we go through it all, but they still have 38 points. They're in the first wild card spot right now. Do I think they're better than Pittsburgh? Probably. I like their goalies more than I like Pittsburgh. But I mean, for Pittsburgh, I still hate their team makeup. I love Sid. Ricard Raquel's, Brian Rust play really well, and part of that's because they get to play near Sid Crosby, and he elevates them. Erik Karlsson he's a losing player, but he's on the team. But if you look at it, it's Brian Rust, it's Crosby, it's Raquel, it's Malkin. Beauvillier's been decent lately. He's been scoring some goals. But it's few and guys that produce on this team. Few and far between. They picked up Pierre-Olivier Joseph from St. Louis, so he rejoins Pittsburgh. He rejoins the team that originally drafted him. So interesting there for him to get traded and then end up back on this team. We look last night, Brian Rust, 4 points. Crosby, 4 points. Raquel, 2 points. Karlsson had a pair. And their goaltending was slightly better than Nashville, where Saros let in 5 goals on 20 shots. Just pitiful in Nashville. Their entire team this season has just been a debacle. But good for Ottawa. They're normally out of it, and they're not. They're winning games. They're staying in the fight. That's what they have to, stay in the fight, stay in the mix. Win a game in Calgary on a Thursday night. Yes, you're on the road, and it's a long road trip, but you found a way to win one. And your captain his face was beaten to hell after that high stick, but you won the game. That's great. You need games where not everything's going your way and you win one. Happens all the time to teams around them. Really. Few minor trades in the league. Capo Caco of the Rangers, who complained about being a healthy scratch and signaled out for the Rangers' bad play. He was traded to the Seattle Kraken for defenseman Will Borgen, a 2025 third-round pick, and a 2025 sixth-round pick going back to New York. First of all, I saw insiders say this had nothing to do with him telling this to the media. I don't buy that for a second. That's media covering up for their sources. They got rid of him because his play hasn't been very good since he got drafted. Inconsistent. He's a big guy that doesn't throw it that many hits. He's not that physical of a player. He should be a more physical player, but he isn't. And that would be I get that. That's frustrating. Because he should be that player, but he's not. He's not going to be at this point of his career, which is frustrating. But Seattle takes a shot on him. They need some offensive upside for sure. And they get Kako. It's fine. Will Borgen, big shot defenseman, 2 draft picks go back to the Rangers. Mentioned Pittsburgh, Pierre-Olivier Joseph traded back to Pittsburgh from St. Louis for future considerations. And Montreal and Nashville did a deal. Montreal gets Alexander Carrier. Nashville gets New Brunswick's own Justin Barron. Barron, I think, was frustrated with his role with Montreal, not given many opportunities. Carrier, I'd say, is a better defenseman currently than Barron is, so he's going to plug in, play right away. Barron, I think, still needs to find who he is as a pro if he's going to be an NHL player long term. But a few minor trades, and now the freeze is there's no trades until after the new year. The holiday freeze is on. So that's why there was a flurry of small moves made over the last couple of days. Because as of midnight last night, there are no moves until, I believe, the 31st. So rosters are locked, minus AHL recalls such as Matt Murray, until the new year. Anything else I want to talk about hockey before we move off of it? I mentioned I hate the Leafs. Yeah, I did mention that. Just throw that back in. I hate their top line. Oh, it bothers me. I don't know why it bothers me, but I know it's not going to work. And when I see something that is just destined for failure, it hurts me. It hurts my soul. I did want to mention this. The Vegas Golden Knights have won 6 of their last 7. And it's kind of quiet, Vegas. And their one loss in that span was to the Oilers. And the Oilers have been playing really good hockey, by the way. And it'll be Vegas and it'll be Edmonton down the stretch of who's going to win that division. Because the Canucks aren't what they were last year. Rick Tocchet had that team playing, I would say, Rick Tocchet hockey. And what I mean by that is they bought in and they checked and they fought for pucks. And I see too many guys like Elias Pettersson and JT Miller at times that just aren't doing it. And that concerns me. They lost again last night in Vegas. But Vegas won 6 of their last 7. And to me, the Western Conference has some really good teams. And it's going to be another gauntlet to get through it. The East is far, far easier of a path if you're going to get to the Stanley Cup final. Unless there's big trades and that can change. But just right now, if I look at the West, Vegas is very good. Could they get to a cup final? Yes. Edmonton? Yes, I believe they could. They have their faults, but they have the best player in the sport, and they have a guy who had another 3 assists last night and very well could win the Hart Trophy this year in Leon Draisaitl. He's pretty damn good. Edmonton could. LA is a good team. Another team that just kind of quietly goes about their business. LA, who has lost in the first round the last 3 years, and LA's biggest fault is they play Edmonton all the time. And it's just a bad style matchup being an older team, and Edmonton's just, they're better, quite frankly. So, LA, their biggest problem is their division and who they're stacking up. I don't think they're better than Vegas or Edmonton. Do I think they're better than Vancouver? I do, personally. The Central. Central is a loaded division. You look at Winnipeg. Do I think Winnipeg could get to a Stanley Cup final? Yeah. Not going to be easy because they could lose in the first round. Because it's all about matchups. And it's all about who you get to play, what rest you get, things of that nature. We look at West. Winnipeg is leading the Western Conference currently, but they have a couple games in hand on Minnesota and a couple games in hand on Vegas. But if this playoff started today, it would be Winnipeg hosting Colorado. That's not fun. That's not fun. That's tough because Colorado could win the Stanley Cup if they get adequate goaltending. Now, easier said than done if they get adequate goaltending. But could they? Absolutely. Mackenzie Blackwood's been good since getting there. They could use another defenseman. But Colorado, yeah. Dallas, yes. Ottinger needs to make a save. He didn't do that against the Maple Leafs the other night. But if Ottinger can make a save routinely, show up, be a part of the team, Dallas could win a Stanley Cup. Yes. Minnesota. Interesting one. The Minnesota Wild. They have one of the best players in the sport in Kirill Kaprizov. No doubt about that anymore. If you don't know about him, you're probably not watching hockey close enough. They have also have one of the best defensemen in the sport. And you'll know this guy if you follow to the point because I love him. I got a man crush on him, Brock Faber. Brock Faber's a stud. And for all the old people out there, he's a plus 12 this year. Pretty good for a defenseman. He's not going to be a points guy. He's got 3 goals in 32 games. But people don't score when he's on the ice, and he gets the puck out of his zone really efficiently, and he's such a great passer, and he's a really fluent skater. But who wants that? That's so boring. Ugh. Give me Erik Karlsson. Ugh. Give me another guy who doesn't. Stupid. Stupid. But he's great. And Zuccarello still has game. Matthew Boldy is great. Former Boston College. Marco Rossi. First round pick that's taken some time. But the kid's found it. Coming from Austria. Found his game. Playing well. Minnesota Wild could win the Stanley Cup. Maybe. But I got like 5 teams in the West around Christmas that I think could win a cup. Out East, I don't think Tampa can win because I don't trust their defense. And the way they play, I don't think they can win. Metropolitan Division. I like the Capitals, but I don't think the Capitals are good enough to win 4 rounds. It's a great story so far, but I don't buy it. Devils. Probably. They'd be on the list, but I'd also have in Inc. Sheldon Keefe coaches this team. And Sheldon Keefe ran the Leafs a certain way. And the Devils, they still have a small problem. They're a small team. And I hate that. I want bigger bodies come play. They don't have it. That concerns me. Carolina. I love Carolina. However, they have the same issue that they have every freaking year. They never get a goalie, and they never get enough scoring. They still have that issue. So saying, oh, Carolina can win a cup, it goes against just logic, and I don't like to do that. That's stupidity. And I like to be as smart as often as I can. So that leaves me with Toronto, and that leaves me with Florida. And that's the only two teams right now that I'd have on the list in the East is Toronto and defending champs. And I'd have Florida 1. Because I think Florida's better. They need some help on defense. But they can win. Absolutely. They know how to win. Going to 3 straight cup finals, however, really tough. Tampa did it, but it takes a lot out of you. And that's why the Leafs have a really good opportunity, because I look at every other, like Ottawa, no, I'm not, no. Boston, no. Tampa will make the playoffs, but we've seen if Toronto plays Tampa in the playoffs, they'll beat them. They play extremely well against Tampa Bay. They have no problems playing that team. Jersey, maybe. Carolina, need help. Still need help scoring goals routinely. Need a better goalie. Do they get that before the playoffs? Hard to do. Really hard to do. We got a bunch of games in the NHL this weekend. We mentioned the Leafs-Sabres game tonight. That's interesting because it's the Matt Murray return and Sabres incompetence. Hurricanes playing the Capitals in Washington. Fun matchup. Let's see, Utah in Minnesota. Colorado back-to-back, fresh off winning against San Jose. They are in Anaheim tonight. So we'll see what they have. We got tomorrow Sharks Oilers, another 5 o'clock start for the Oilers, a little afternoon game. Minnesota in Winnipeg. That's fun. Two teams that don't like each other, same division. Love that one. Islanders Maple Leafs. Snore. Just every Islanders game is just it's boring. What can I say? Ottawa Vancouver. I'll watch that. But some interesting games this weekend. Now, we're going to get to NFL and the picks this weekend in the games and storylines. But we talk about gambling on the show. All picks, all lines courtesy of FanDuel Sportsbook. Beginning tonight, we have the college football playoffs. And I realize that not everybody that listens to the show watches college football. I feel sorry for you because it's fantastic. And this is the first year that college football has expanded to a 12-team playoff. And for the first 2 rounds, teams with a higher seed will be playing at their campus, which is fun. And I just wanted quick 5-10 minutes. Well, I'll give you picks for tonight, but also just future bets if you want to make some on college football. Also, just check out a game. You might enjoy it. I mean, I know you got to get to Leafs Sabres tonight, but there's other stuff. Other things happening. That's all I'm saying. But hey, you do you. So, what I want to look at here is best bets for deep run into the playoff. So what you can do is you can pull up, just go CFB bracket, and it gives you an outlook on who teams are going to play and what they have to go through to go deep. So for instance, number 12, Clemson is playing 5, Texas. this weekend, 5 o'clock tomorrow, and that'll be in Texas. Hook 'em. The winner of that game will go on to play number 4, Arizona State. Arizona State won the Big 12. They get a bye. They shouldn't get a bye, but they did. And that'll be the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, and that'll be in Arizona State on New Year's Day. Tennessee visiting the Ohio State University in Columbus tomorrow night. The winner of that game will play number 1 Oregon on January 1st. In an awesome game, I don't care who wins tomorrow, that's an awesome game. And Oregon should not have to play a team that good, but that's college football for you. SMU will be in Happy Valley tomorrow afternoon to play Penn State. The winner of that will go play Boise on the blue turf. We have tonight's game, Indiana playing the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and the winner of that game will play Georgia on January 1st. So that's the bracket. Who can take advantage of this? Oregon got screwed with a really tough bracket. So I like future bets. Who can go all the way? The future bet I like is Notre Dame to play Oregon in the national championship. Notre Dame is a really unique team. Riley Leonard is not a typical great quarterback when it comes to throwing the ball downfield, deep shots. But he's a great runner. He has some Josh Allen traits. He's a Mack truck of a human being. They have a really good defense, and their running back, Jeremiah Love, is a future star in the NFL to me. So as I said, for Notre Dame, they're on the opposite bracket. So they would meet Georgia. Georgia is going to be without their starting quarterback in the next game. Georgia is playing a second-string quarterback because Carson Beck is hurt. So that helps Notre Dame. They would then have to play Penn State, SMU, or Boise, and they're better than all of those teams. So to me, they're going to be in the national championship partly because they're a good team, but also because their bracket is a lot easier than, say, Oregon, who will have to beat Ohio State, I believe, then have to beat Texas to get there. That's a tough gauntlet. Those are tough teams to beat, where Notre Dame gets a bit of a cupcake. But it is, Christmas time, so I'm glad to see the religious institution catch a break, because we know the religious institutions never get enough breaks in life, other than tax breaks. But no, I won't go anymore. That's enough. Enough digs for today. For this weekend, but as a future I like, Notre Dame playing Oregon in the national championship game. Notre Dame was a 7.5-point favorite. It's been bet down to 6.5 as of today, right now on FanDuel. Teams are betting on Indiana. Indiana, great story. Curt Cignetti, first-year head coach there, came over from James Madison, brought a lot of transfers. Indiana has Curtis Rourke, Canadian, brother of BC Lions quarterback Nathan Rourke. I think Notre Dame wins by 2+ touchdowns tonight. They're going to run the football. I don't think that Indiana's going to be able to stop them. In front of that home crowd, I don't think they cover the spread. I like Notre Dame -6. I like Notre Dame 2 touchdowns, but I certainly like Notre Dame -6.5. Tomorrow, the SMU Mustangs head to Happy Valley to play Penn State. Penn State's an 8.5-point favorite. Penn State 2 losses this year were to Oregon, the number 1 team in the country, and to Ohio State. Now, SMU really didn't play tough teams until they met Clemson in the ACC title game, and they lost their one tough game. Penn State impressed me against Oregon. They stayed in that game. They put up a lot of points. Drew Aller is a good quarterback. I think home teams are going to have a lot of success this weekend. And I think Penn State at home in that environment, they're going to win and they're going to cover. Clemson, Texas. Clemson getting 12.5 in Texas tomorrow. McConaughey's going to be on the sidelines. We know that. He's going to be fired up. Texas, 2 losses this year, both to Georgia. Quinn Ewers struggling at quarterback. I think Texas is going to win the game because I think every home team is going to win this weekend. But 12.5 is a lot. I think Clemson can keep it close. I like Clemson plus 12.5, but I like Texas to win the game. What I would consider is buying up the points and get that up to 14. Buy a 1.5. You can get Clemson plus 2 touchdowns to cover just to be safe. But even 12.5, I think they'll cover that. Because that Texas offense has not been explosive. Isaiah Bond, their top wide receiver, doesn't look like he's going to play tomorrow. That spells trouble to me for Texas. Clemson covers, Texas wins. And final game of the playoff weekend, Tennessee visiting the Ohio State. It'll be Ohio State's first game since their loss to Michigan, pepper spray, that whole ordeal. Tennessee's a good team. So is Ohio State. Ohio State has so much talent. If Ohio State loses tomorrow, Ryan Day will be fired before the start of next year. 100%. Because that would be back-to-back losses at home in huge games. But I don't think they're going to lose. Tennessee, if Tennessee had an awesome, like a pro wide receiver that I thought was great on their team, I'd be interested in taking them plus the points because I do think they're a solid roster. But Ohio State just has so much talent. And while I think their quarterback situation is average at best in Will Howard, I think it's good enough to win this game. Good enough to set up a rematch against Oregon, a team they lost to earlier in the season. I like Ohio State minus 7.5. Beating Tennessee and setting up that rematch with Oregon. So I haven't done much college football, but I wanted to get into it just because there's some interesting betting angles. It's fun sport to gamble on. Putting a future on Notre Dame, Oregon National Championship. I've already done it myself. There's money there. You can also just bet on, like right now, if you bet Notre Dame to make the semifinal, plus 158. Yes. You're getting plus money for them to get to the semifinal on an easy path, including one home game. You can go Notre Dame to make the college football championship game plus 360. I like that as well because I think they're going to get there. In national championship, you have Oregon best odds plus 340, Texas plus 370. Interesting. Georgia plus 500. Ohio State, Penn State, all have had a Notre Dame at plus 750 to win the national championship. Clearly, they don't have that much faith, but part of it is getting there. And their path to getting there is better, is easier than Ohio State, then Oregon, then Texas, all these teams ranked ahead of them. And what if these games are tough and players get injured and you have Notre Dame going, okay, we beat Indiana, we beat Georgia without their starting quarterback, and then we beat Boise or we beat Penn State. It's not like Penn State can lose a big game. That's all they do is lose big games. They win their easy ones every year. Something to think about when you're gambling. Week 16 in the NFL started last night in Los Angeles, SoFi Stadium, with the Chargers beating the Broncos. Chargers are a 2.5-point favorite. They covered. Justin Herbert was phenomenal in the second half. Made plays with his legs, extended plays, created outside the pocket. Ladd McConkey has been awesome with Herbert all season long. Those two guys are simpatico. And you look at Ladd McConkey, 6 for 87. Herbert threw touchdown passes to Haskins and to Darius Davis. Completed passes to 10 different receivers last night, which is impressive. And you saw two quarterbacks I thought played pretty well. Bo Nix had a very solid game. The Broncos ran the football really well and they got away from it, which surprised me in the second half. I don't know why they didn't run the football more because it was working. It set up play action for Nix to hit guys like Sutton, to hit guys like Mims. He did a lot of check down stuff. But ultimately, in the second half, when the Chargers got the ball, they scored. And the Broncos couldn't match. We got to the end of the game, and that Broncos defense just started to give in a little bit more. And the Broncos couldn't find a way, really, to make a stop, to make a play against Herbert. And it was a huge win because with the result, we'll go to the standings here. Chargers are 9-6. Broncos are 9-6. Chargers are now in the second wild card spot of 3 wild card teams. Chargers now have a 98% chance of making the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs. The Chargers have Patriots, at Raiders. Their last 2 weeks, they're going to win both of those games. They're going to have 11 wins. So for Denver, I'm sure they're looking at this morning going, that was a road game that we should have won. Because now they go at Cincinnati next Saturday, the 28th. The Chargers also play next Saturday. And then they finish home to the Chiefs. 2 difficult opponents. 2 games that could absolutely both lose. But the Bengals like to lose stupid games. But now it keeps teams' hope alive. If the Bengals, this is the scenario, the Bengals have to win their last 3 games, which are against Cleveland, Denver, and the Steelers. They have to win their last 3 games. They need Denver to lose their last 2 games. And they need the Dolphins and they need the Colts to each lose at least one more time to get in. So the Bengals, they keep hope alive. The Dolphins, 49ers, Browns, Jets. Colts, very easy schedule. Titans, Giants, Jaguars. I think the Broncos and the Chargers are both going to make the playoffs. To me, they're both playoff teams. They both have good quarterbacks. They both, I think, have good coaching. Jim Harbaugh was fired up after the game, gave his players time off until Monday, and they have a short week on Saturday, but he didn't care. He was pumped that they won that game on a short week. And Herbert looked like the man last night. He looked like a guy that could do it all, that could be a pro's pro, make big throws, having a guy he trusts in Lad McConkey, who they drafted out of Georgia, who's been phenomenal in that system. They look like a team that means business. They look like a team that could compete in the playoffs, that could cause some problems. You never know. Playing on the road, tougher. If you're going to Buffalo or if you're going to a cold city, that could be problematic. But I give them credit. That's a game it looked like they're going to lose last night, and they found a way to win it. The rest of this weekend, talk all week. Patrick Mahomes sprained ankle. Likely won't be playing. Well, that was more media, and that was honestly me. I talked about it as well. I still believe this. If I was Kansas City, I would not play him against Houston because I think they can beat Houston without him. Period. And Vegas clearly believed that Patrick Mahomes was not going to play because this was as of Monday. Houston was a 2.5-point favorite on the road in Arrowhead. Andy Reid comes out. Mahomes is playing on Saturday. Good to go. Off the injury report. The man's tough son of a bitch. People can say whatever they want about him. They don't like him. Oh, he's never going to be better than Brady, whatever it might be. I don't give a shit. He's pretty good. Now the Chiefs are favored by 3.5 at home against the Texans. Here's the deal. The Chiefs have to win 2 of the last 3 games. If they do that, they're the number 1 seed. And to me, that's why he's playing. They want the number 1 seed because the Bills are not going to lose any of the last 3 games because they have the Patriots twice and they have the Jets. They're going to win those games. So the Chiefs are saying, I believe, we'd love to win all 3 of our games. But if we can win 2 of them, if we could win the next 2, then we could sit Mahomes the last week of the season and play Carson Wentz and be happy, and who cares? Now, they covered last week for the first time in 6 weeks against the Browns. It was 8.5. They won by 14. 3.5-point favorite at home. Houston's going to the playoffs. So it's not as if Houston is competing for something overly. They could put themselves in a spot where they could be a 3 seed potentially. I think that's highly unlikely. They're 9-5. They've won their division. They're going to the playoffs. Likely going to be the 4 seed. Likely going to be playing the Steelers or the Ravens in the playoffs when it starts in the opening round. That's kind of their position. And I think they're going to try to win every game because maybe they'll want to be the 3 seed. Because if the Steelers lose a couple games, the Ravens lose a couple games down the stretch, you can squeak in there. But I think the Texans are going to be the 4 seed. The Texans' offense is lethargic. Their defense is very good. Derek Stingley Jr., Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter. They can get after the quarterback and they can pick the ball off if you want to be loose with the football, which Kansas City has done at times this year. Two really good defenses, two average offenses will take the field tomorrow afternoon. I think Kansas City is going to beat Houston tomorrow, and I think Kansas City is going to cover. I like Kansas City minus 3.5 to go in there and get the win. Get one of the two that they need in their final 3 games to guarantee themselves a first-round bye. They want it. I agree. They need it because they're not the team they used to be, despite the fact that they win games every week. But I like Kansas City minus 3.5 to cover that spread and for Mahomes and company to beat the Texans. Second game tomorrow, Pittsburgh Steelers visiting the Baltimore Ravens. No George Pickens for the Steelers for the third straight week, their number 1 receiver. That's tough. They miss him a lot when he's not out there. TJ Watt sprained his ankle, but is going to be playing because he's a tough SOB, just like Patrick Mahomes. Pittsburgh's won 8 of the last 9 meetings with Baltimore, if you can believe that, including a win earlier this year. Baltimore is a 6.5 point favorite at home. Division game, they don't like one another. If Baltimore wins this game, they jump into the divisional lead. Pittsburgh will drop down to a wild card team. I like Baltimore to win, and I like Baltimore to cover. Yes, they've lost 8 of the last 9. Yes, they've struggled, but Pittsburgh's offense is dead without George Pickens. And Lamar had 5 touchdowns last week, and he looked awesome. I think he'll play good tomorrow. I think Baltimore is the better team. I think Baltimore is going to win the AFC North. Baltimore's defense is not great, but it's coming together, starting to play better, find themselves a little bit. Baltimore, I think, looks at it and goes, we win this game. Then we play Houston on Christmas. Easier opponent. Pittsburgh then has to go play the Chiefs. And you're probably like, okay, yeah, well, if they don't beat us, they're probably not going to beat Kansas City. And then they have to play Cincinnati in their last week, and Cincinnati could still be playing for a playoff spot. That's a tough stretch. Ravens will play the Browns out of the playoffs. Nothing to play for. Dorian Thompson-Robinson at quarterback. DTR, my guy from UCLA. I think the Ravens will win their division. I think the Ravens are going to win tomorrow afternoon. And I think they cover. I think they win by a touchdown. And I hate betting favorites. It's my least favorite thing to do is bet favorites. But I also look at it and go, Baltimore's due. Baltimore is playing better. Baltimore is the healthier team. They had a bye just a week ago. Then they played the Giants. That's like 2 bye weeks. They're ready for this. Baltimore, Kansas City, both win, both cover tomorrow. And we'll recap those Sunday morning before we do the World Junior preview as well. The rest of the football weekend. Some interesting storylines. Kirk Cousins benched in Atlanta for Michael Penix Jr. III, formerly of the University of Washington. This time last year, he was playing in the playoffs for Washington, beating Texas. 5 touchdown game, looking great. Was a runner-up for the Heisman. His first game, he gets to play the Giants, which is a phenomenal thing to happen to anybody, that you get to play the Giants in your first career NFL game. And for a guy that is in his first start. He is an 8.5-point favorite at home, which is a sizable margin, but also the Giants are just terrible. So I can understand it to a certain extent. Also this weekend, Eagles, Commanders, and a very fun 2 o'clock kick. Eagles trying to kind of grab hold of that division, still playing for the number 1 seed. With Detroit, with all those injuries, Detroit has some tough games down the stretch. Detroit still has to play Minnesota one more time. Detroit still has to go to San Francisco in the second last week of the season. So not a lot of gimmies in there for Detroit with their defense as wounded as they are. See, Vikings, Seahawks. Geno Smith was banged up last Sunday night. He's going to play despite all those injuries. Seahawks are 3-point underdogs at home against Minnesota. Seattle needs this game. Seattle's on the outside looking in for the playoffs currently. But with a victory and a Commanders loss to the Eagles, you're back in. They're chasing the Rams, who are 8-6. Rams have the Jets, home to the Cardinals, then home to the Seahawks to close out their season. 3-horse race, really, and I take out the 49ers. 3-horse race for the NFC West. See, also this weekend, Dolphins, 49ers. That's a 5:25 kick on Sunday. Dolphins are a 1.5-point favorite at home. Interesting. Jags, Raiders, that's like a tank off. Nobody wants to win that game. Nobody has any interest in winning that game. And the Raiders are actually they're a 1.5-point favorite at home as of now. Bucks at the Cowboys Sunday night. Cowboys looking to play spoiler. Bucks trying to win the NFC South with Baker Mayfield playing great football and Mike Evans chasing 1,000 yards for another season. So there's some interesting games. Some teams can't wait for the season to end. Browns-Bengals, always interesting. The Browns always seem to win that game as well. Yet they're getting 8.5 against Cincinnati with Dorian Thompson-Robinson in his first start this season. DTR, UCLA, was a 5th rounder in last year's draft. So some interesting story. Then you get Christmas games. And we'll do this on Monday's show. We'll talk about the Christmas games. We'll talk about those lines and where they sit. All that fun stuff. We'll do that on Monday. And Sunday, as I said, World Junior Preview Show. So stay tuned for that. That should be a lot of fun. Best players to watch in the tournament, all that forthcoming. So we'll do that on Sunday. We'll also touch on the NFL games from Sunday as well. So on Sunday morning. So all that's happening over the next couple of days. So enjoy the weekend. Thanks for hanging out this afternoon. Until next time, I'm your host, Noah Warren, and this is the Live and Learn podcast.